remember the sharp clink of cutlery against porcelain, the splintering sound made sharper by the hush that fell over the table. The evening carried the scent of coriander and ginger, heavy and stew-thick, curling into the corners of our small Nairobi flat. Sunlight, slanting golden, flickered against Mother's bangles as she set a rice bowl in front of me, her eyes darting between mine and my father's, warily. Uncle Mutiso cleared his throat, the way he always did before he wanted to say something disagreeable. So what is this I hear? He pinned me with a half-lidded stare, oily from a lifetime of knowing he knew better. Next to him, Auntie Mercy had already begun her slow headshake of consternation. My cousin Linda turned in her chair, grinning. "He wants to be a dancer," she said, with an edge that turned my dream into a joke, a thing to be paraded and promptly mocked. The word dancer fluttered above the table, absurd in the confines of family sensibility. Dancer. It was there in the way my legs remembered music, in the secret rehearsals behind the locked door, sweat and hope bleeding into the floor. Father looked at me as if weighing the words for the first time, heavy in his mouth. "Is it true?" I nodded, straightening my spine. "I want to audition for Sarakasi. I want to make something real." "Dance?" Laughter, clipped and mean, leapt from Uncle's throat. "Dance is for parties, for children, not for supporting a family." Mother's eyes pleaded with me, wordless, soft. "It is not a real profession, Mwana wangu. You are clever. You could finish your teaching diploma." I felt the steel inside me tremble but not bend. I forced the words out, low and sure. "It is real for me." Linda dug her elbow into her brother's side, both of them stifling giggles. "Maybe Alex will become famous and forget all of us." She sang, her voice nearly falsetto. Auntie Mercy leaned forward, her bangles clicking. "Look me in the eye, Alex. You will be the village clown, jumping on stage for tourists. No one will respect you." Father said nothing. His silence hollowed the space between us more than any spit words could. I watched his jaw work, one muscle flexing as he scooped ugali with precise, practiced fingers. We ate in silence, but the air felt thick as porridge, every breath scratching my throat. Later, I ran my fingertips over the battered wood of my bedroom door, thinking of muscle memory, the times my body answered music without permission. My dreams flickered alive only in the dark, unwanted by the daylight of my family's stern realism. I lay awake, breath shallow, watching the street lamp carved shadows on my wall, unresolved but still aching with longing. Nairobi is a city that doesn't sleep. You can hear boda bodas screaming down the road at 2 a.m, laughter tumbling from tin shack bars, the metallic chords of genge thrumming from every open window. Yet, in those nights after that dinner, I felt more alone than ever. Unable to reconcile the safety of my family's well-worn plans for me with the earthquake that trembled beneath my sternum each time I danced. There were weeks of silent tension. My mother left pamphlets for universities tucked in the covers of my mattress, as if the leaflets might take root. Father worked later, coming home exhausted and stiff-limbed. Conversations about the future summarily cut short. I went to school, nodding dutifully, scribbling dance notes in the margins of my textbooks. When I finally walked toward the old stone building for the Sarakasi auditions, alone, carrying nothing but my beat-up Nikes and a pound of fear convulsing in my stomach, it was early enough that the streets belonged only to the birds. I joined a cluster of hopefuls outside. The competition felt colossal, talent humming on the air, but I let myself vanish into the music, feet pounding like a promise. They took me in. I worked harder than anyone. I swept floors, mopped sweat, ran drills until my legs shook and the world spun. My teachers were sharp, exacting, humorless about technique and timing. There was no room for artful failure, only sweat translated into mastery. Sometimes I fell asleep on the rehearsal mats, the rhythm of my own weary heart a lullaby. Back home, the silence became its own language. My family never spoke of the auditions, as though by ignoring my absences they might undo them. My mother cooked for me, sometimes leaving late-night tea on the table, but her eyes rarely sought mine. Father worked and worked and worked, retreating deeper into an unspoken disappointment. I carved out my routines in secret, tracing lines in the dark. My first show was nothing. A school matatu full of children, 2 loudspeakers, the crackle of a microphone that died through half the performance. But I saw a girl in the front row, no older than 7, watch, eyes wider than the city sky, as I turned and leapt. She watched with awe I had only glimpsed in dreams. In that moment, applause or money or approval felt like lesser currencies. I was giving her a piece of truth, the kind of magic I'd never been given. Years blurred forward. Nairobi grew in me, choreographing, late nights, injuries, sudden successes, stumbles. I taught classes, ran after-school programs, worked tiny digs in hotels. I sent what little I earned back home, the money accepted but never discussed. A small show at the National Theater. A mention in the newspaper. My mother clipping it, pressing it into the family Bible, but never speaking of it. Still, the old ache lingered, a yearning for embrace, for I see you, Alex. But I was becoming steelier, carving out a place for myself on the city's restless stages. Then came City Pulse, the moment that would change everything. Sponsored by a telecommunications giant, national broadcast, 3 months of auditions, callbacks under hot white lights, the sensation that my skin had become a drum. I choreographed a story, my story, about a boy who refused to stop moving even when the laughter was cold. My group moved with that same hunger, gutting the air with leaps and spins and vivid risk. We won. We won! Suddenly, doors swung open. Calls came in from Lagos, from Johannesburg, even from Paris. The city that had once hemmed me in now stretched itself underneath me. Billboards, radio spots, interviews. There was money, real money. But more than that, there was a new kind of respect, the kind that is slow-grown and reluctant but unmistakable. I stayed gone for a long time. I taught in school gyms, led workshops from Kibera to Kasarani, coached kids who reminded me of myself, trembling on the edge of something big, hungry for a place to fly. My family kept quiet, our conversations matter-of-fact, surface-deep. Only sometimes did my mother say, "We saw you on TV yesterday," folding her hands, trying not to cry. The old neighborhood changed little. Concrete walls aging in dust and sweat, the shouts of children darting between hawker stalls. Matatus roaring with the music of impatience. I returned not with fanfare, but quietly, walking the foot-beaten path home in the dusk. I carried a duffel bag and wore a jacket that fit well, the kind of detail my aunts would fuss over. When I walked in, the house was full. Everyone had gathered for my cousin Linda's engagement. Laughter pressed up against the walls, the familiar chorus of Karibu. But as they saw me, the room stilled in a way that was strangely measured. Their eyes trying to reconcile this Alex with the boy they'd last seen in tattered shoes. Mother's mouth trembled, and then she smiled in that way only mothers can, setting her arms around me as if to ground herself against all that distance. At that moment, I wanted to show them not for revenge but for something softer, proof, not just as a trophy but as connection. I made a proposal, come and see me work. I explained, simply, that the ministry had commissioned a showcase at the Kenyatta International Conference Center. My company would headline. There would be tickets, front row, if they wanted. After a moment's awkwardness, they agreed, half in curiosity, half in civility. The evening of the performance. Downtown Nairobi pulsed with a different energy. The city glimmered under banners and colored lights. The night alive, car horns and people's voices colliding in celebration. My family arrived together, clutching their tickets, Auntie Mercy sniffing as though expecting trouble. Father's shirt was pressed. Mother wore her wedding shuka folded over her shoulders. Cousins and in-laws trailed after, uneasy, as though uncertain about entering somewhere that seemed too grand, too public. Backstage, I saw them take their seats, row 1, directly in the hot wash of stage lights. Their faces were tight, skeptical, but attentive. The audience buzzed, but for me, the world narrowed to those faces, the ones who had seen all my beginnings and doubted the shape of my end. The music began, a slow build, drum and voice weaving together until the floor vibrated with anticipation. My company and I burst onto the stage, limbs pounding in rhythm, sweat flying. I could feel every eye in the place, but none of that mattered, not really, compared to those in the front row. We moved through stories, children chasing daylight across crowded streets, mothers gathering water, men leaping joyfully despite the weight of years. My solo came, just me, in the smallness of the lights, telling the story of a boy leaning into every no as if it were just a door someone forgot to open. My body performed